morning. So sorry for this delay. As the panel is obviously aware, we wear a great lot of Buddhist luggage with our histories, with the received wisdom, particularly of the Mahavansha, carrying us through to the majoritarian population. Would the panel give us some insights on how the younger generation could be taught to perceive the distinction between received wisdom and what is true in the 21st century? I mean, from my point of view, the Mahavansha has thrown us into a lot of conflict and bloodshed through the decades. And I'm an archaeologist and I've seen firsthand the nuances that the Mahavansha impose on us. So, is it possible for history to be taught to the younger generation to resolve these issues?
Shamara?
Okay, well, if I was just, this is a very, very important issue you've raised. Thank you for your question. Just to speak to the Mahavamsa a little, it's actually mentioned as one of the sources that should be in the teacher's guides, the teacher guides in public school history. I think that's one thing we really should be studying about. So the Mahavamsa is yet another historical source, and we should critique it and analyze it like we would any other source, like we would a colonial source. That's going to require actually a culture shift, and I don't think it can be done overnight, especially because there are interests within the state that would be very opposed to being more critical of Mahavamsian narratives. I know that professors of history at Colombo University, elsewhere, have been working for years with engaging the National Institute of Education to try and bring about this change. So far, they've been resistant and it's been very difficult, and that's why there are all these fantastic public history educations taking place beyond the state. But I think I want to be hopeful that perhaps in the future we can actually see some kind of progress made with meaningful engagement with state structures to change the way history is taught and the way teachers are told to teach history.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really, really important question. I mean, I think the Mahavamsa needs to, I guess, be contextualized in the larger category of the Vamsa literature. It's one of a series of chronicles. And so one of the things I've been interested in and have written on is how the Mahavamsa became the canonical text. And that was partly to do with colonial Orientalists translating it at a particular point in time, in the 19th century as well. So I think, understanding where the Mahavamsa came from, what its different iterations were and how it was put together and how it became the text in a landscape where there were lots of Vamsa texts would be one starting point. The other thing which I'd really love for us to do more in Sri Lanka is to engage with the palm leaf literature of the country and to understand the whole extent of it. So to understand, again, where the Mahavamsa fits, because it's a rich literature and we know so little about it because we've been certainly kind of working through the colonial texts and the printed texts much more. And I think the more we understand about the palm leaf literature, we'll understand that it's so polyglot, right? Certainly Buddhist monks were producing palm leaf texts, but there are lots of other people producing it as well. And they're linguistically extremely complicated. So they're linguistically quite complex and polyglot as well. And so I think what we've discovered, the more we work around the Mahavamsa, is that the Mahavamsa is a really interesting text and it deserves to be scrutinized and interrogated in various ways. And one can understand why it has had this sacred significance, but that we also need to actually now bring the other texts to view around it. And as we do more and more of that, we will have a much more complex history. And then we need to work out how to generate the skills, which is a really difficult thing in schools, given the resources that there are, and the teaching structures that are in place, for that to diffuse and to be used, that sort of way of thinking about the Vamsa texts and the palm leaf traditions, how they can have an impact at school level as well. So that's, I think,